Hey Astro Kids, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to talk about the transit of Mars in Gemini, which will take place from April 13th till June 1st of 2021. And the saying that I've used for this one is, no weapons, words are my weapons. And so this will be all about this transit. And this is a very interesting one as Mars is an enemy sign. So Mars and Mercury do not get along. Mars is very unhappy in this sign of Gemini. And we're going to talk a little bit about why that is and how that is going to affect us as we go through this transit here of Mars in Gemini. So, starting off here, before we get into this transit, we have to understand what is the meaning of Mars and what is the meaning of Gemini. And then we can put these two energies together to talk about how this is going to impact us. So, first of all, Mars is considered the military general or the commander in chief in the planetary cabinet. So, this is a soldier. This energy of Mars is a soldier, right? This is a warrior. Mars is all about jumping into the action, taking care of business, getting the job done. So this is a very impulsive energy, very energetic, very strong, very determined, very willful when it comes to the sign of Mars. And so this planet is one that is looking to take action, to strive towards getting the job done, to conquer, to win. And so Mars is a very individualistic planet. It is very much about the self motivation, the self passion, the self desire to achieve, to win, to dominate. And so this is part of the reason why Mars is very uncomfortable here in the sign of Gemini. Now, the two signs that Mars does not function well in are Gemini and Virgo, and along with that, Cancer. And you'll notice that these signs are about connection. And so this is a huge part of why Mars is unhappy here. Mars wants to be individualistic, it wants to do its own thing. And this is why Mars is most happy in the signs of Aries, Scorpio, and Capricorn, where it can be itself, it can just act on the mission, it can just get the job done without having to interact or deal with others as much. So Mars is very much this energy that wants to do its own thing. It wants to complete the mission or the goal on its own. It cannot do this in the sign of Gemini, and we're going to talk a little bit more about why this is as we continue through this video. So what is Gemini? Gemini is probably one of the most changeable of all of the signs in the entire zodiac. Gemini is a jack of all trades and a master of all trades. Gemini has about 1,000 different ideas all at once, doing various different tasks all at once. And Gemini is all about being friendly, talkative, diplomatic. And again, this is part of the reason why Mars is uncomfortable here. Mars does not want to deal with people. Mars is not looking to be friendly, to negotiate, to come to a harmonious agreement. Mars wants to go into battle. It wants to take care of the mission, the goal. And so here, this energy of Mars is very scattered. It is very much all over the place. This is not necessarily a bad placement to have Mars in Gemini. This does give us access to a lot of different skills and a lot of energy that we can use. So this is very much an energetic placement that has a lot of scattered energy and vitality to it. However, there is not much of focus in this particular sign of Gemini. So Mars does not have all of its energy and drive focused towards a target like it normally would in Aries or Scorpio or Capricorn, where it's very determined. It's very much about getting the job done, getting the goal completed. In those signs here in Gemini, This becomes much more of a flirtatious, social, curious, airy type of energy. Here in the sign of Gemini, Gemini is a mutable sign, so it's able to adapt and be flexible to various different situations. And in particular, it is flexible in its way of thinking because it is an air sign. Air is connected to the mind. It is about our ideas, our thoughts. And so this sign of Gemini, again, is full of various different thoughts, various different ideas. And this makes Gemini a very good communicator. It makes Gemini very good when it comes to business and writing and various different skills. But again, Mars is uncomfortable because it wants that strength, it wants that determination. It wants that willpower, which is not so much here in the sign of Gemini. The strength of Gemini is more so on a mental plane, where this is about communication, connection, sharing different ideas, this curiosity to learn new things, these various different skill sets. So Mercury is not much of a reactive sign, as Mars is a reactive planet. It wants to jump in and take action. But here, Gemini is more logical. It is more so a peaceful and logical type of sign. Gemini is less likely to act upon feeling and more likely to use logic to figure out a situation. Gemini also is a very emotional sign on the side of connection. So Gemini is about connection, right? And this is one of the misunderstandings in astrology is we typically see Gemini as twins, as in brothers or sisters. This is particularly a twin energy as in lovers. So Gemini is actually about true connection. It wants a mental attachment for the sake of love and connection. So this becomes a huge part of this energy. Now, Gemini is the original sign of the third house. So it is connected to siblings through that third house. Along with that, it is connected to our communication, our skills, and this is communication of all kinds. So when we talk about Gemini, this can be communication in terms of writing, this can be communication in terms of speaking, this can be in terms of various different languages, any sort of type of communication is going to come through this sign of Gemini. It is a sign that is very idealistic, once again, very good when it comes to coming up with different ideas, having various different skills and different areas of interest. This is a sign that is also very good at playing devil's advocate. Gemini is good at seeing all sides and is good at questioning and looking into various different sides and rearranging different patterns. So, again, this energy is very scattered, it's very versatile, it's very much able to adapt in its way of thinking and reasoning. So let's talk about this transit of Mars in Gemini. So we talked a little bit about what it looks like to have Mars, and then we talked about Gemini. Now we're putting these two energies together. And again, what I used in the beginning is no weapons, words are weapons. So when Mars comes into Gemini, remember that this is a difficult placement. Mars is in an enemy sign in this position of Gemini. So this can create harsh words, using words in a violent way. Remember that Gemini is a very diplomatic sign. So Gemini does not want to be violent or aggressive. And so the way that Mars is actually expressing this aggression that it has is through the actual communication. This is coming out in words. And so when this energy becomes more angry or aggressive, it's going to be expressed through words versus being expressed through actual violence or aggression. So this creates very aggressive speech. Not only this, but for the most part, this energy is very calm, very serene. But even when this energy is calm, the communication can still come off as aggressive, as commanding, right? This Mars energy is still going to express itself through Gemini. And so this can create aggressive writing, a very aggressive style in terms of writing. This can create a very aggressive or impulsive way of expressing one's skills or trying to get attention for those skills. This Mars in Gemini energy is, again, very energetic, very versatile. This is a lot of energy. And this is a huge theme as we're coming into this month of April here, as we're having all of these planets in Aries, this huge stellium of Mercury, the Sun, Venus, and Uranus that we talked about in a previous video. And along with that, we have this Mars, which is the ruler of Aries in Gemini. So we have a lot of energy that is going on right now. Whereas some of you, depending on where this is in your chart, you may already be starting to feel this energy that is building. And as we come closer towards the middle of April here, we can see a lot of energy, a lot of drive that is coming up within us. The problem here is that, again, this energy is very scattered. This can give us the ability to do various different tasks. But the question becomes, are you spreading yourself thin with this energy? Another question that comes in with this Mars and Gemini transit is, are you waiting until the last moment to act on what it is that you need to fulfill in your life? So it's very important that we're prioritizing, that we're organizing, that we have a logical way of using this energy. Again, Gemini is about logic and reasoning, but can we actually put this into practical use, or is this just ideas that are floating in all different directions? Gemini is the very immature side of this Mercury energy, right? It becomes more mature when it gets to its exaltation of Virgo, which is where it becomes more practical, more organized. Here in Gemini, it's very scattered. It's very much pulling us into various different directions based upon curiosity, based upon this desire to learn. But how can we structure it? How can we bring it back down to earth? And so this is a huge question as we're coming into this Mars and Gemini transit. This Mars and Gemini energy also is a very sexual energy. This can increase desires coming into this actual transit here. And that third house is connected to our desires, it's connected to our courage to go after the things that we want, using our skills, using our logic to get the things that we want. And so, this energy of Gemini is connected to our desires. Again, this Gemini energy is all about the twin lovers, this energy of a man and a woman, of the both sides, seeing both sides to a story. And so this is tapped in and connected to the feminine and the masculine when it comes to Gemini. This does create, again, strong desires. And we're seeing this especially as Venus is going to be moving through Aries as well with the Sun and Mercury. There's a lot of fast paced desires that are coming up, a lot of this impulsivity and this restless energy, this desire to do something, to act on something. And so it's very important as we're going through this transit of Mars and Gemini that you're using this energy wisely. How much of this energy are you putting towards the task that actually serve your greatest purpose in life? What are the important things that you need to get done? Using this energy, using all of this mental vitality and agility that is coming through here to work towards the things that are important to you versus wasting this energy on things that are of less importance, right? And this is something that we tend to associate with Gemini as we think of it as a superficial sign. Not necessarily. Gemini can be a very deep sign depending on how you're using this energy. And we'll talk more about that as we go through the individual charts of how this will affect you depending on your zodiac sign. But let's go ahead and talk about some of the aspects of this transit of Mars in Gemini. So Mars is going to be casting an eighth shadow over to Pluto at the start of this transit. So Pluto is there in the sign of Capricorn. So Capricorn is eighth away from Gemini. And so this creates a situation here where there is a lot of these changes or endings that are happening, right? And this is especially for those of you who wanted me to add this influence of Pluto in. Pluto is a transpersonal planet, so it does not carry personal karmas. But for those of you who can connect and tap into this energy of Pluto, you know that this is an energy that is about destroying or breaking down things and rebuilding it, restructuring it back together. So, this recycling influence of Pluto is here, where eighth from Mars, eight being the number of death, of transformation, of crisis, which is also heavily connected to this Pluto energy, that there's a lot of changes that need to take place at a deeper level. And so, as we're getting this fresh new energy of Mars and Gemini, as we're getting all of this mental agility, all of this high energy and high spirit of this Mars and Gemini transit, this is part of the reason why I say, what are your priorities? How are you going to use this energy? Because what's happening here is that the way that we use this energy determines whether we are going to stay stuck in the past or whether we are going to move into the reality that we want to achieve for ourselves. So, this energy is going to transform you either way, but it is your choice of how this will go. It is your choice of how the story of this will actually play out in your life. So, are you using this Mars in Gemini energy here with its eighth aspect over to Pluto to end something that no longer serves you in your life and to open the doorway to something that does serve you for your highest, greatest good? Or are you going to allow situations and circumstances in your life to transform you? And this is where there's a lot of shadow aspects that are coming up. Remember that the eighth, that number eight, is connected to Scorpio, which is controlled by K2. K2 is all about past karma, about fears, about losses, right? K2 takes us back out of the physical and shows us what is hidden beneath it. And so these shadow aspects of ourself that we are almost unaware of, some of us are aware and are repeating these patterns, and some of us are unaware and have these things that are repressed deep down that need healing, that need transformation. A lot of this is coming up to the surface. This is a time where you want to change the outcome of how this story is going to play out for you. How is this going to end up? Now, Mars is also going to cast its eighth aspect over to Saturn towards the end of this transit. And Saturn is also a very karmic planet. Mars and Saturn have an interesting relationship. Saturn is the only planet, we talk about this a lot in Vedic astrology, that Saturn is the one planet that has the ability to pacify the effects of Mars. So Saturn and Mars are living in the shadow of one another. Mars being this very impulsive, very aggressive energy, and Saturn being about discipline and justice. Saturn is going to slow down the effects of Mars. As Mars is casting this eighth aspect, again, eight referring to death, to transformation, to longevity, right? Going back to that eighth house, So as Mars is casting its 8th shadow over to Saturn in Capricorn, this becomes a huge time of listening to your intuition, listening to what is being told to you about what it is that you need to do. What is the final outcome? Again, this planet of Saturn is about discipline. And so there's a question here of this being about justice, that are you doing the right justice by yourself? Are you doing the right justice by yourself? So there is this question of, are you doing what is right and true to yourself? Are you going to step up and make the necessary changes to get to the outcome that is meant for you? And so this is a very difficult transit, not only because Mars is an enemy sign in Gemini, but because we have these aspects over to Pluto and Saturn. There's a lot of deep internal work and integration that needs to happen during this time. So, for all the things that we want to do, that we want to achieve, that we are looking at as something that is far out in the future, right? This Saturn energy that is all about the future, as Saturn is Mullatricone in Aquarius, and this Pluto energy, Pluto being all the way at the end of our solar system. We're seeing this as this far out experience, this far out journey to get to where we want. But why can't we make that our reality right now? And so there is a huge message that came through as I was going through this transit here about being present, about staying in the moment, about bringing those goals and ambitions that you want to achieve right here in your current reality. Again, Saturn is about our concrete reality. We have this 8th aspect over from Mars. We want to achieve this reality. We want to make this happen. We want to do the work to transform this into our reality. And so, how do we make this happen where we're not trying to make this something that is far out into the future, right? This is how we're seeing this as something that is far out in front of us. But how do we make this goal right now in our reality? And so there is something big about believing and holding faith that what it is that you want to achieve in the future is something that you already have right now. This is coming off of this aspect from Jupiter. Jupiter, being in Aquarius, is giving a 5th aspect over to Gemini. And so this is a huge time of believing in yourself, believing in what you want to accomplish. Remember that that 5th house is connected to creativity. It is connected to your projects, your goals. And so, what is it that you want to achieve? What is the vision? How can you make that vision your reality right now? And so, there is a huge factor here about holding faith and belief in what you want to achieve, especially as Mars is here in the sign of Gemini, where this is connected to our ideas of what we want to accomplish, what we want to make a reality. Bring this into the present. Hold this energy in your space instead of trying to push it far out in front of you. Now, on April 16th, the moon is going to come into an association with Mars. And we'll see this happen again on the 15th of May as well. This moon Mars combination is going to be very much a very reactive type of energy. We are trying to take what is in our mind and actually bring it out into reality. And so this is a time, especially when this moon comes into a conjunction with Mars, to think in terms of your skills, think in terms of your abilities, of what you can do to make your goals, to make the things that you want to achieve a reality right now, working towards this. And especially in the last transit of this Moon Mars combination. In the first one, this is a lot of energy, a lot of strength, of going after what you want. In that last one, it becomes more about your beliefs, about your faith, of achieving this, of making it a reality. But during both of these transits, pay very close attention to your goals of what you want to achieve. We will see the moon also come into an opposition to Mars on the 30th. So now this is a point from which our mind and our energy is in two separate places. And so this is a time where, again, you want to pay close attention to the focus. Where are you putting your energy at? Are you finding yourself distracted and pulled away from the direction that you are trying to achieve, that you are trying to move towards? How can we integrate and pull these two things together? So this is a huge part of this transit here of Mars and Gemini, is we are having this aggression, this energy, this drive towards our thoughts, our ideas, what we want to bring into this reality. How can we bridge the gap, as this is Mars in an enemy sign? It's uncomfortable. How can we make this uncomfortable situation comfortable? How can we make this energy work? How can we bring these skills, these things that we want to pull into our existence, something that is attainable, something that is practical, something that is here right now in our present reality? So let's talk about the nakshatras. So during this Mars in Gemini transit, Mars will move through the nakshatra of Mrigashira, Ardra, and Punarvasu. So these are the nakshatras that it will move through. Now, Mars is already in Mrigashira, right? This is from the end of Taurus moving into Gemini. So we are finishing this out at the beginning of Gemini. And this nakshatra of Mrigashira is symbolized by a deer in the forest. This single minded focus, this research, this work in isolation. And so this nakshatra is all about finding focus. This becomes quite easy in the sign of Taurus. But when we come into the sign of Gemini, this is where this nakshatra can have some difficulties of this scattering of focus. And so, as we're trying to find our focus, we're trying to figure out how to direct this energy towards our goals. It's important, again, to remember how to bring this Mars and Gemini together, how to integrate this energy, how to put your energy and your logic together and use these skills to work toward your goals instead of trying to scatter this into other areas that are distracting or pulling you away from the mission, pulling you away from the goal of what you're trying to achieve. So, this is an area where, again, as we're coming into all of this, how can you focus your energy? How can you put your energy into this? Now, this nakshatra of Mrigashira is controlled by Mars. So this is a double Martian energy as we come into this. Mars is already in Gemini and we're coming into a Mars nakshatra. So this is a lot of energy, a lot of aggression, a lot of willpower. And so this becomes very difficult to manage all of this energy. Again, are you being distracted? Is your energy being pulled into multiple different directions or facets or talents or hobbies, etc.? Are you able to take your energy and focus it into one direction? Because even though this energy of Gemini is about multitasking, How do we get the most work done? We focus it into one thing. Again, this message of remaining present, of pulling your focus into this current reality that you are in. This is a huge part of this entire transit, is how present can you be? Are you right here or are you in the future? And a lot of us coming into this Mars and Gemini, I'm already seeing this, that a lot of us are going to try to put our focus into the future, put our goals that we want far out in front of us. What are we doing when we do that? We are putting distance between ourselves and what we want to accomplish. We want to bridge that gap and pull that into our current reality. And so this is a very difficult transit in terms of focus, in terms of putting the energy into the right place. Now, moving forward here, we move into the Ardra Nakshatra. This is an Aquarius Navamsa, represented by the teardrop. And so this is an area where deep research is something that can help you tremendously in your goal and what you want to achieve. Again, though, make sure that you're staying focused. And the help of Saturn will allow you to stabilize and maintain that focus. But here's another thing is there a fear around accomplishing your goals? And so as we're moving through this mid part of this Mars and Gemini transit, pay attention to your state of mind. Are you fearful that it's not going to work out? Are you thinking negative thoughts? This is a scientific nakshatra. And so many of you are going to go through lots of trials where you will see some failures, you will see some bumps in the road. Are you going to keep moving toward your goal, or are you going to allow that to trip you up? So this is a huge part moving into this. Again, staying focused, staying grounded, staying present through all of this, as this energy is going to try to pull you into so many different directions of thinking. It becomes very distracting. We need to bring this Gemini energy back down to earth. How can we make this practical? How can we use this? Now, the last nakshatra that this Mars and Gemini transit will go through is the Punarvasu nakshatra, symbolized by the quiver and the arrow. This is a huge time of this deeper wisdom and insight. Again, a lot of you throughout that second nakshatra of Ardra, there's this ability to research and study things at a deeper level. You will go through these trials and errors, right? And this is why we say to remain present, to keep going, to not put this distance between you and your future of what you want to achieve. You will see the failures, you will see the disappointments. But what does that do? It gives you the wisdom, it gives you the knowledge of what doesn't work so that you can do what does work. And so this is a very interesting transit here of Mars and Gemini, again, because this takes a lot of faith. This takes a lot of understanding that if we keep trying to put this distance between ourselves and our goals and trying to envision what the future us is going to look like in this, trying to put ourselves out into this external reality, then how does that future become our present reality? We need to integrate what we want to achieve, that goal, that future plan right now, into where we are. And so you must be content in where you are. And this is where that eighth aspect over to Saturn and Pluto come in. Is there still some healing? Is there still some transformation? Is there still some internal work that needs to be done so that you can make that room to hold faith, to be content in where you are, and to be present in the goal that you're trying to achieve? How can you pull that future perspective and put it here in the present, because this present is going to become the future. Just as there is no past, the past was the present, and we're here in the present. This idea that we're trying to make this a linear timeline of how can we get out in front of ourselves? There is no in front. This is all happening here in the present. So, how do we pull this into our present focus? How do we make the reality that we're trying to envision out in front of us? How do we bring that here in this present moment? And so, as we come into this last nakshatra of Purnavasu, this is about the wisdom. This is about the insight of what we know we need to achieve this goal, this outcome. So, using the wisdom, using the understandings, taking everything that we're doing right now throughout this entire transit from April 13th to June 1st as a lesson to move us towards our goal that we already have, that we already know is becoming our current reality. So let's go ahead and jump into each of the zodiac signs and how this will affect you according to your chart. Let's go ahead and start off with the cardinal signs. So if you are an Aries moon or Aries ascendant, you will have Mars in Gemini in your third house. This is a huge time of cultivating your skills, of using your skills, a lot of courage to act on those skills. And Mars, being your chart ruler, is actually very happy in this position. So even though this is an enemy sign in Gemini, Mars is your chart ruler. So this is going to give you good results regardless of this conflict between Mars and Gemini. Mars is on your side as an Aries moon or Aries ascendant. This is time to believe in your skills and your talents and to use this to integrate this. And as the moon comes over this, a lot of creativity, a lot of deep insight that you can use in this transit. And even as the moon is posing this over in your ninth house, again, there's a lot of wisdom, a lot of insight that's coming out of this, of how you can use this to actually level up in your career, in your profession, in what you're trying to accomplish, as Jupiter is making a fifth aspect over to Mars from your 11th house of gains. So, what is your desire? What is it that you're trying to achieve on a higher level? This is a huge time if you are using your skills, if you're using what you know, if you're pulling it into the present, that this is going to help you to prosper in this area. Jupiter is a friend to your ruler Mars. It is sitting here in your 11th house of gains. Big time where you can receive a lot of victory from this ability to tap into these skills. Saturn and Pluto are also receiving an eighth aspect from Mars in your 10th house. So these two planets here in your 10th house of career, of status, getting that eighth house, getting that eighth aspect over from Mars. So this is a huge time to transform in your standings of your career. We're seeing this change, we're seeing this growth happen. Saturn is a very slow planet as it is transiting through your 10th house, and Pluto is there trying to destroy and break apart the things that no longer serve you. So we're seeing this long, drawn out process of your achievements, of your accomplishments, of what you're trying to actually gain in this experience. And as Pluto retrogrades, we're going to see a lot of deep internal reflection that's going to help you to level up. Remember that when a planet is retrograde, it takes on the qualities of the opposite sign. So at the point that Pluto stations retrograde, this is going to activate your fourth house of your inner peace, your internal mind going through these transformations, going through this inner work that needs to take place, for you to move towards your goals, for you to move towards what you are trying to achieve. And this Jupiter and Aquarius transit is benefiting you in a huge way, as Jupiter is now in your 11th house of gains and is a friend to your ruler Mars. So this is a potential for some good news, a potential for some gains, some support to come in a big way. Jupiter, especially being the ruler of your ninth house of teachers and mentors, transiting through this 11th house of gains, you can receive a lot of wisdom and support through others at this time. And this can help you in a huge way to level up, to move forward. There's a lot that is being released in order for you to step into this. Again, Pluto is here to destroy and dismantle what is no longer serving you, to move you into this higher position. And especially as Jupiter is the ruler of your 12th house of losses, there is something big that you are releasing within the subconscious in order to move forward into this new space. Those of you with a Cancer moon or Cancer ascendant, Mars will be entering into your 12th house. This is deep. Mars back in the 12th house of the subconscious. Mars being a planet that is of losses, that is of challenges, obstacles. This is a malefic planet. This is a functional benefic for those of you with a Cancer moon or Cancer ascendant, as Scorpio does control your 5th house. But this is back in your 12th house, where there's a lot here that is needing to be cleared and cleaned out in terms of your goals, your achievements. Are you trying to achieve something that isn't actually on your level, that isn't actually serving you to the highest, greatest good? There's something big here about changing your expectations, changing what you think is best for you at this time. There's more. And so setting your limits very low here is causing a lot of disharmony in terms of what you can actually achieve. And we're seeing all of this change happening in your 7th house, which is the house of the marketplace. So we're seeing this change in your business. And especially for those of you who are in business partnerships, we're seeing that there's room for more growth. And so with Saturn here, it's almost a fear, and Pluto there, of this fear of trying to hold on to this old ambition or this old goal that is not big enough, that is not enough for what you can actually achieve. And Jupiter there in your 8th house, making you realize, as Jupiter is a functional benefic for you, Jupiter controlling your 9th house, making you realize that you can go bigger. This 9th house of Pisces, you have bigger dreams that you can accomplish. And so there's a lot that is actually being cleared out to make room for this growth, for this improvement to take place, especially as Jupiter is controlling your 6th house of Sagittarius as well. There's a lot of growth and improvement that you can do to level up to the next chapter. And especially as the moon hits Mars back in the 12th house, you're going to feel this. The moon in the 12th house is a very psychic placement. This is activating a lot of deep internal subconscious messaging that can help you in a big way in this entire transit. And so as the moon comes back into your 12th house, pay attention. This is a great time to journal. This is a great time to have a dream journal ready. This is a great time to listen to your intuition as this is taking place. For those of you with the Libra moon or Libra ascendant, Mars is going to transit through your 9th house. This is a big time to use your intellect to move towards your goals. And Mars is a functional malefic for you. But Mars, remember, is controlling your 2nd house of speech and your 7th house of partnerships. You are amazing at negotiating, at debating, at using your communication skills to get to where you want. Mars here in the ninth house, this is a big time to use those skills of speaking, of communicating, of debating, of negotiating, of speaking up for law, for justice with this energy here in the ninth house to move towards your goals, to move towards what you're trying to achieve. This is a time where this Mars energy is a little bit of a difficult factor for you. Mars being the enemy, as Mars is a Marca sign for those of you with a Libra moon or Libra ascendant. But as it's moving through this ninth house, which is a very fortunate house, this is giving you the ability to use, again, your skills, your knowledge, your intellect to move towards these goals that you want to achieve. Pluto and Saturn receiving their eighth aspect from Mars as their position in your fourth house. There is a lot internally that you are cleaning out. There's a lot internally that you are clearing out that no longer serves you. And for some of you here, you might even be doing some house cleaning. You might be doing some donating or moving things out of your home that no longer serve you. So this can manifest physically as well. But underlining in the subconscious, there's a lot that's being cleared and moved out through this energy. Jupiter is giving its fifth aspect over to Mars as it sits in your fifth house. This is a very beneficial influence. Jupiter is not the greatest planet for those of you with a Libra moon or Libra ascendant, but this is giving you some great insight, some deeper wisdom and insight that can help you towards your goals, that can help you towards what you want to achieve. And so, as Jupiter is here in Aquarius, where it's very happy to be here in the sign of Aquarius, this is giving you a lot to work with in terms of your goals, in terms of what you're trying to achieve. And so, opposite to Aries, Aries has this vision of these higher goals, of these achievements that are being supported by this Jupiter in the ninth. You're getting the opposite effect here, where this is a time to work towards your goals and achievements, to use the knowledge, to use the skills. Jupiter is a heavily benefic influence in the fifth house when it comes to wisdom and knowledge, using your insight, using your skills. Jupiter is aspecting over to your ninth house of higher knowledge and over to your 11th house of gains from its transit in the fifth. This is highly beneficial. This is time to cultivate in your wisdom and your insight of what you've learned and gained as you've been going internally to gain this insight with Jupiter in your fourth. And so, huge time for those of you with a Libra moon or Libra ascendant to use your knowledge, to use your wisdom to move towards your goals. For those of you with a Capricorn moon or Capricorn sun, Capricorn ascendant, this is Mars transiting through your sixth house. So, this is an interesting position for those of you with a Capricorn moon or Capricorn ascendant. Mars is very powerful in the sixth house. So Mars is a malefical planet and it is moving through a malefical house. This creates a beneficial effect. Mars here in the sixth house gives you a lot of energy, a lot of drive to work towards your goals, to work through conflicts. You have this tremendous amount of willpower through this transit. Mars here, though, you want to be careful of illnesses and accidents that can pop up here. This can get you into arguments and conflicts very easily with this Mars in the sixth house. But this gives you the power to overcome any obstacles and conflicts that come up with this position of Mars. As the moon transits through here, you especially want to be careful. This is going to make this heavily sensitive, heavily emotional, where you want to be careful of reacting as the moon comes over Mars, and especially as the moon opposes Mars from your 12th house. There can be some irrational reactions and responses that can come up from this transit. Jupiter is giving its fifth aspect on Mars from your second house of speech. This is a huge time to pay attention to your words. Once again, you can get into arguments, into disagreements, into conflicts very easily using Jupiter to try to talk this out. And Jupiter is not a friend to your ruler Saturn, so this becomes very difficult. This is a time where you want to find a diplomatic approach to the conflicts and issues that can arise. Saturn and Pluto getting their eighth aspect from Mars as they sit in your first house. You have been transforming, you have been maturing on such a huge level for those of you with a Capricorn moon or Capricorn ascendant. Saturn and Pluto have been here for quite a while now, and this is a huge transit of your growth, of your maturity during this time. A lot of you growing internally at a very deep level with this Pluto activation in your first house. And this process continues here with this. This is a test as Mars is moving through your sixth house of can you deal with the stresses and conflicts that can arise in your life. This is a test of how much have you grown and transformed through this process. And so, are you going to pass the test? Pay very close attention to any planets that are in your sixth house. This is going to heavily affect them through this transit. This is a time, though, where you want to pay close attention. If you need to, look back to this video because you will see these conflicts arise, and this is a huge test. I'm going to say this again. This is a huge test for those of you with a Capricorn moon or Capricorn ascendant, a huge test of how far you have come. So let's go ahead and move on to those of you with a fixed sign. If you are a Taurus moon or Taurus ascendant, then Mars will be transiting through your second house of speech. Watch out for your speech. This is a time where your speech can become more aggressive with this Mars activation in the second house. This is a huge time where speaking your opinions, as Mars makes its aspect over to your ninth house, becomes huge in the impact of how this can affect others. Saturn and Pluto are getting this eighth aspect from Mars in the ninth house. Your beliefs can affect others at this time. Saturn is a very dry planet here in your ninth house, where you can come off as very much harsh in your speech at this time. Mars in that second house of speech and Saturn in the ninth house of belief and teaching. This can be a challenging time in terms of communication. So you want to pay close attention to this. Mars also aspecting over to that fifth house where there is a lot of tension in terms of your expression, this impulsiveness to express yourself, this impulsiveness to use your speech, to put your ideas out there, to openly express yourself with others that can bring to the forefront a lot of conflict. And this can show up especially in family issues as well as Mars sits in your second house of early upbringing and aspecting over to the fifth house of children. Be very careful of how your speech is cutting through these relationships and connections at this time, as Mars also aspects over to that eighth house of shared resources and intimacy. A lot that can come up, a lot of difficulties and conflicts that can arise at this time. You want to pay close attention to your eating habits as well. That eighth house is the house of chronic illnesses and diseases, and it is getting the aspect from Mars in the second house of your food intake. This is a huge time to pay close attention to health, to any sort of arguments or conflicts that can arise, especially as the moon transits over this Mars in the second house. This can light up this area on a huge level emotionally, where there can be strong reactions, strong responses that can lead to a lot of stress and conflict. Jupiter is giving its fifth aspect over from your 10th house, so this becomes a great time for business. Because your speech is more aggressive, more straightforward, you can do very well in business and management at this time. This can help you tremendously in the business front. But again, you want to pay close attention to your personal relationships. This can hurt this in a big way. But you can see a lot of abundance coming through in the area of career with this Jupiter aspect. For those of you with a Leo moon or Leo ascendant, Mars will be transiting through your 11th house. And so this is a huge time of networking. This is a huge time of connecting to your friends, to your coworkers, to those who you have connections with. You can get a lot done through teamwork. You can get a lot done by being a leader at this time. Mars, again, being that planet of individuality, as it sits here in this 11th house of large social gatherings and group events, you can make a huge impact on other people, and you can be the one giving the orders to get these things done, to get these dreams accomplished. This 11th house being a house of hopes and dreams, your desires. This is a huge time where this Mars energy can help you get a lot done, accomplish a lot at this time. Now, this can be very difficult as Mars is aspecting over to your sixth house. But with the aspect on the fifth house, this gives you a lot of room for growth, for improvement. This can even be a time where you receive acknowledgement and achievements through this Mars transit. As Mars aspects over to the sixth house, again, you have this power or this influence over your subordinates, over your colleagues, over your coworkers, whatever the case may be. You have this strong authoritative influence over those who work with you. So this can be a great time of getting work done. Mars is giving an eighth aspect over to this Pluto Saturn in your sixth house, though. So there's a lot here that is changing in terms of your work, in terms of your goals, in terms of the things that need to be taken care of and accomplished. There's a lot that's shifting in terms of this foundation. And there is a lot that can change here with this Saturn energy. Saturn also is ruling over your 11th house. And so this is a huge time where, again, you can see an expanse in terms of the people, or level up in terms of the people who serve you, who support you at this time, where there can be some people who once were in your corner who are leaving. This is making space for new people to come in to serve you with this Saturn influence in the sixth house. This is also a time where any sort of conflicts or difficulties that come up, you have enough time to overcome these issues, as Saturn is delaying all of your difficult houses. Saturn from that sixth house is casting its aspect over to the eighth house of crisis and to the 12th house of losses and expenditures. So, any sort of difficulties and conflicts that arise at this time is something that can be delayed significantly enough for you to overcome and avoid these potential disasters from happening. For those of you with a Scorpio moon or Scorpio ascendant, Mars will be transiting through your eighth house, very intense. The 8th house is your original house. It is the original house of Scorpio, this house of crisis, of death, of fears, of obsession, of transformation of the darker parts of the psyche, of hidden knowledge, of mystery. So, this is a huge time where your passion for these things that are hidden or concealed increases. This is also a huge time where you can see some difficulties come up, some conflicts that can arise with this Mars 8th house energy. You want to be careful here. This can land you into some trouble where some risk can come up. You are protected, though, from Jupiter's 5th aspect over to Mars. Jupiter being the most beneficial for those of you with a Scorpio moon or Scorpio ascendant in that 4th house of your home. And so a lot of you are strongly protected by that Saturnian influence of the 4th as Jupiter is casting from that position with its 5th aspect. You know when to be cautious, when to look out for danger at this time. And so, using your wisdom, using your knowledge of what you know, your insight with Jupiter there in that 4th house is important. Remember that Jupiter controls your 2nd house of your family upbringing, of your values, and controlling your 5th house of education. So, being smart at this time about the conflicts that you could get yourself involved in, figuring out how to avoid these conflicts, figuring out how to overcome these conflicts in a healthy way, you know what to do. So, using this Jupiter and Aquarius influence is of high importance to those of you with Scorpio moon or Scorpio ascendant, especially as the moon comes across this Mars influence. The moon is a highly emotional planet, and Mars is the warrior. This can make you extremely reactive in these situations. You want to be very cautious as we are going through this transit. Pluto and Saturn are also protecting you as they're receiving their 8th aspect over from Mars. And so these difficulties, these situations bring you to an immediate justice, an immediate outcome of how this will play out. But as Saturn is in your 3rd house, your courage is being extremely delayed. And so, again, being smart, taking that time to think it out is going to help you because Saturn is here to slow it all down for you. Saturn is here to stop and delay these difficulties. Once again, Saturn is the only planet that can pacify this Martian influence. Mars being your chart ruler, you have the power to come out of this on top. So, using this energy in a smart way is highly important. But there's a lot that is changing here. There's a lot of passion for you to change. A lot of you are very much passionate about trying to transform your life in a big way, trying to move into this new unknown territory in a big way for those of you with Scorpio moon or Scorpio ascendant. So the ball is in your court. Using your power smartly, using your decisions wisely becomes a huge factor here. For those of you with an Aquarius moon or Aquarius ascendant, this is Mars transiting through your 5th house. Very powerful in terms of your education. You can use your skills, you can use your knowledge to level up, to work towards your projects, to get goals completed. And for those of you who are still in school, this can help you tremendously as well as Mars makes its aspect over to your 8th house and over to your 11th house and your 12th house. Very deep time to tap into this deeper level of understanding and knowledge as that 8th house controls mystery, investigation, hidden knowledge, and that 12th house also controlling the subconscious. You have a lot of opportunity to dig deeper in terms of your knowledge and research and to use that information to your advantage. Saturn and Pluto are receiving their 8th aspect over from Mars in your 5th house. Saturn and Pluto position in the 12th, very intense. A lot of you have been going through these unconscious cycles and transformations that some of you may or may not be aware of. Saturn is your ruler, but this being submersed back into the 12th There's a lot that is playing out without you realizing it at a subconscious level. And so this is a time where there's a lot that is needing to be released, a lot that's needing to be worked through. Saturn is the karka for fear back in this subconscious area. What is it that's blocking you or holding you back? Looking at this, diving deeper into this, this is a great time for meditation. This is a great time for journaling. This is a great time for reflection to bring these things back up to the surface. Pluto back in this 12th house is trying to transform you, and especially as Mars is casting this 8th shadow over to Pluto, there's a lot internally that this Mars energy is trying to get you to tap into. As the moon crosses over Mars, this increases the thought process. This increases the feeling of needing to go in, needing to make these changes and adjustments. Again, there's a lot that's come into your clarity, into your awareness with Jupiter in your first house. This is huge. Jupiter has been back in your 12th house for some time now and is here in your first, where you have this clarity, you have this insight that is coming through for those of you with an Aquarius moon or Aquarius ascendant. Jupiter is not the friend of your ruler. So this becomes quite difficult for those of you with an Aquarius moon or Aquarius ascendant. But this is a huge time where there's a lot of clarity, a lot of insight that you can use to work through this. You can use to work through these blockages. Again, the whole theme of Aquarius, as many of you know from these videos, has been change, has been releasing, letting go. This is a huge moment as Mars is making this aspect over to Pluto and Saturn in the 12th, that you're coming into this realization, and also Jupiter making its 5th aspect to Mars. This is all connected about making this realization on a deeper level of those areas that need to be changed and worked through, as this is going to open up a lot to you. We have the Jupiter, the planet of expansion, that is connected in all of this transit here of this Mars in Gemini in your first house. This is trying to expand the possibilities for you, open up the doorway, but we need to remove these blockages back in this 12th house area. Let's go ahead and move on here to the mutable signs. So if you are a Gemini moon or Gemini ascendant, Mars will be transiting through your first house. This is your sign. Mars is not a friend to you, though. So this becomes very difficult. Gemini, as a rule, is a very diplomatic sign. It is a sign that is very friendly, very negotiable, very much about information, seeing all sides, making peace, communicating. Mars comes into this first house and you become much more aggressive, much more dominating. This is a time where you want to be careful about getting into disputes and conflicts, as Mars is going to be aspecting over to your 7th house and your 8th house. Huge in terms of relationships where you can find yourself in a battle with others. This is also Mars aspecting over to your 4th house. No peace at this time, as many conflicts and issues can come up to the surface that have to be worked through, especially when the moon transits over Mars. There's a lot that is going to come into your awareness, it's going to come into your mind about these areas that need to be worked through, that need to be faced at this time. And so anything that you're trying to hide, Mars is going to cast this aspect over to your 8th house of hidden knowledge. Anything that you're trying to hide, anything that you're trying to avoid, any fears, anything that you're trying to push down is going to come back up to the surface. Remember that that 8th house originally is controlled by Scorpio. It is controlled by Ketu, the karmic backlog. There is this area, this pit, as we call it, in the 8th house, where we try to push things down into the dark. We try to hide things there. Anything that you're trying to hide, relationship wise, especially as Mars is going to cast this aspect over to the 7th house of partnership, this is going to come back up, especially as this 8th aspect from your first house with Mars in it is going over to Saturn and Pluto. Saturn is a karka for fear. Saturn is symbolizing the delays, the blockages, the frustrations, and Pluto is here to transform this. You have a lot of deep internal healing and work to do in this area. And we talked a lot about that in the first part of this video about the integration and the internal healing that needs to take place to put you in the position where you feel like you are in the right space. You are in the right space to get to your destination, farming that platform for what you want to bring those future results here into your present reality. So there's a lot of work here for those of you with a Gemini moon or Gemini ascendant. Again, Mars is not happy in the sign of Gemini. So there's a lot here that is coming up that needs to be addressed, that needs to be worked through. Jupiter is casting its fifth aspect over to Mars from your ninth house. You have a lot to learn, a lot to gain, a lot of wisdom to pull through at this time. And Jupiter is here to teach you. And so you can run into a lot of teachers and guides at this time. You can run into people who are trying to give you this wisdom, this insight that's going to help you in a huge way. You can find this especially by getting into conflicts, arguments. Take that as a lesson. Jupiter is going to aspect over to your sixth house. And so there's a lot that can come up in terms of disputes. If you find yourself, again, Mars in that first house, where this energy becomes more aggressive, it becomes more conflicting. If you find yourself in these arguments and conflicts, what is the lesson that you can take away from it? For those of you with a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant, Mars is going to transit through your 10th house. So this is a huge time for you to level up in your career. Now, even though Mars is in a difficult position in Gemini, Mercury is your ruler and Gemini is a very positive position for you. You have Mercury controlling your first and your 10th house. Powerful. This is a time for you to level up in your career, in your business, in your skills. There's a lot that you have been doing internally at this time through disputes, through conflicts, through difficulties that you've been going through in these previous transits. This is your time to move up in leadership. This is your time to move up in your position. This is your time to step up to where you need to be at in life. Mars is receiving a fifth aspect from Jupiter in your sixth house. This is a time where so much is opening up in the field of your work, in the field of service, where you have a lot to give and share in this area. And this is going to bring you blessings with Jupiter in this sixth house. This is very powerful, where many of you, again, are at this point now, especially with Jupiter now in the sign of Aquarius, where you are able to use this wisdom, this knowledge, this insight that you have been building to pour this into your work. Jupiter is, remember, the planet of morality. It is the planet of moral obligation here in the sixth house of service. Many of you feeling inclined to move towards this position of leadership, of sharing and teaching and helping others through this area. And Mars, especially, being a planet of surgery, and your ruler being the sign of healing and helping others. This is a huge time for you to step up in this area. Pluto and Saturn are receiving the eighth aspect over from Mars as they sit in your fifth house. Again, using the knowledge and resources, the skills that you have. Saturn is a very practical planet. It sits here in your fifth house of your education, of your creativity, of your skills. This is a time to use and cultivate what you have to work towards your goals. So this is a very positive transit for those of you with a Virgo moon or Virgo ascendant, where this is time to cultivate the resources that you have and to put it to use. This is time where you are actually leveling up to your position. to your position of authority, to your position, your role that you have been working towards throughout this time. For those of you with the Sagittarius moon or Sagittarius ascendant, Mars is going to transit through your 7th house. This is intense. The 7th house is a house of partnership, and we talked about how Mars is a planet of individuality. Mars is not happy here. Mars is not happy in Gemini. It's not happy in your 7th house. This is very complicated. So this is a time here for those of you with a Sagittarius moon or Sagittarius ascendant of really using your knowledge, using your insight to your advantage. This is going to help you in a big way during this time. Mars really is very much unhappy once again in this position, and especially as Mars is controlling your 12th house. Now, with Mars controlling your 5th house, you have a lot of this deep wisdom and insight that you can use to your advantage as you go through these conflicts. But there's a lot that you can lose. There's a lot that can fall away in terms of partnerships. And so this does not necessarily mean romantic partnerships. This means people who you are getting into conflicts and difficulties with. Karmically, these people are falling away. There is something big here about a new chapter that is opening for you as a Sagittarius ascendant or Sagittarius moon. This is a time where you can experience loss, and this can be a difficult time if you are trying to see everything in this positive way, that certain things are going to close, certain things are going to come to an end, especially as Mars is making its 8th aspect over to Pluto and Saturn that sit in your 2nd house of security. There's a lot that no longer serves you, that is falling apart. No matter what you are trying to do here, Pluto is going to create this transformation, and Saturn is here to bring what needs to be brought to justice. This is a time where the things that no longer serve you are not going to work. Saturn in this 2nd house only wants what is strictly to your benefit. Remember that Saturn is a very strict type of planet. It is about discipline, it's about justice, it's about order. This is trying to put you in a position where you are set on the foundation that is only meant for you. There is no room for the distractions, for the extra influences that don't serve you, that don't benefit you. Saturn is blocking a lot out here through this transit. Now, Jupiter is making its 5th aspect to Mars over from your 3rd house. This is a huge time to use your wisdom, your knowledge. Jupiter in the 3rd house is very powerful. Jupiter is your ruler, and it sits in this 3rd house of communication, of logic. You have so much at this time that you can teach, that you can share, as Jupiter aspects over to your 9th house from this position. This is a big time of teaching, of guiding, especially as this is aspecting over to your 1st house and your 5th house as well. This Jupiter energy of teaching, of guiding, this wisdom, this insight that can be very beneficial. So, using your skills, using your knowledge in a big way can help you at this time. But again, there's so much here that is ending, that's being closed, that you don't have control of. You're entering into a new chapter that is better suited for you. For those of you with a Pisces moon or Pisces ascendant, Mars is going to transit through your 4th house. This is very intense. There's a lot here that needs to be worked through internally. So we're seeing this internal conflict as Mars brings confrontation. It is here in your 4th house. So there's this internal conflict within your mind. Now, Mars is a positive planet for you as it controls your 9th house. Still, this is a time of clearing and working through things that no longer serve you. Remember that Mars also controls your second house. And so there is a lot of attachments that are unnecessary that need to be cleared through and worked through at this time. Going within and seeing what is the right direction, what is the true direction that actually serves you. And we've talked a lot about this clarity, this insight that comes through for those of you with the Pisces moon or Pisces ascendant with that transit of Mercury that we previously had going through your first house. And so, what have you learned? What have you gained from Mercury in your first house? This is important to look at. Mercury is going to deposit itself in your second house of Aries, and Mars is here in the sign of Gemini. These are a mutual reception. And so, these two energies are connected. This is time to pay attention to what are the things that no longer serve you? What are the things that are no longer for you that you're trying to hold on to with that original Taurian energy of the second house of what are you trying to depend or hold on to that isn't for you? Making room so that this internal conflict can be resolved. Especially as the moon comes here, you want to pay attention to your state of mind. What is actually for you? The moon is controlling your fifth house, which is a house of good karma. Paying close attention to what is it that you actually want? What is it that actually brings you joy in life? And what are these other things happening on the other side of this that don't serve you that you're trying to latch onto as well? We have Saturn and Pluto getting their eighth aspect from Mars as they sit in your 11th house, your hopes, your dreams, your desires. Again, what is it that you actually want? Saturn bringing in this fear factor, this blockage, this delay, and Pluto here making this a very shaky foundation where there's a lot of changes that are happening here. But what is it that you want for you? Saturn is making its third aspect on your first house. You. What is it that you want to accomplish versus what do you think other people want you to accomplish? What do you think you're meant to accomplish or that you have to accomplish? But what is it that's true to you? Pluto here, all of these changes that are happening, trying to pull you towards your desire, towards what you actually want to achieve. Remember that we have K2 in Scorpio in your ninth house. So Rahu is in Taurus in your third house. The third house is your desires. Rahu is your ambition. It's what you want. So, what is it that you need at this time to get you towards your goals? What is it that you want to achieve? This third house being connected to Gemini, this is all connected. So you see how this is a time here of what is it that you want versus what you think other people expect of you or what you think that you need based upon other people. What is it that you want? And where is this fear, this blockage of Saturn in this 11th house? How can we break through this to bring yourself back to a state where you are exactly where you want to be? We talked about earlier in this video about how this is all about being present, bringing those desires of what you want here in the present moment, realizing that you are where you need to be. Jupiter is giving a fifth aspect over to Mars from your 12th house. So you absolutely have to go inward. You have to see what are the blockages, what are the difficulties that need to be worked through to get you to where you want to be. Again, Jupiter is your ruler and it is your 10th house ruler of your career, of your status. What do you want your status to look like? What do you want your life to look like? What is the destination that you want? And are you here in this present moment in alignment with it? Or are you here where the thought is you're here where you don't want to be and you want this future goal that is here at a different timeline, but how can you pull both of these timelines together to make this your current reality? This integration, this internal work that we talked about earlier in this video is vitally important for those of you with a Pisces moon or Pisces ascendant. That was your horoscope for Mars in Gemini, happening here from April 13th to June 1st of 2021. I want to thank you all so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, feel free to leave a like as well as a comment. If you're new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell. If you would like to learn more about Vedic astrology, there is a link down below in the description along with the comments. I have a course available on the Facebook group Astrology Lessons with Daquan Jones and in the Patreon as well. And I will keep you all updated when this becomes available on Udemy. Once again, if you are new to this channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any new content. As we're moving forward here, we have so much to talk about for the rest of April, so many shifts that are happening. And we are leading into an eclipse season in May. And on top of that, a Mercury retrograde. So we have a lot to talk about as we're moving closer to the summer. You want to make sure that you hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on anything else. Once again, I want to thank you all so much for joining in, and I will see you all in the next video.